My son-in-law pushed a house sale contract across the Christmas table and told me to sign before dessert. When I refused, my daughter locked the front door. 3 weeks earlier, at 5:18 on a grey Monday morning, I woke to the sound of freezing rain tapping against the bedroom window. Portland rarely looked beautiful in December. It looked wet, silver, and tired. I reached for my phone expecting a weather warning or a message from one of the women in my walking group. Instead, I found an email from my daughter. The subject line read, "Family Transition Plan, Action Required Before Christmas." I read it twice before opening it. My daughter, Natalie, had always loved organized language. She was a regional operations manager for a chain of dental clinics, and she could turn anything into a project. Vacations, birthdays, school fundraisers, even grief. When her father died 3 years earlier, she made a spreadsheet for the funeral and color-coded the relatives by arrival time. At the time, I had been grateful. I could barely remember my own address, and Natalie handled every detail. But this email was not helpful. It was chilling. "Mum," it began, "Owen and I have discussed your situation at length. Since you turned 70 in October and winter conditions are getting worse, we believe it is no longer responsible for you to remain alone in the Hawthorne house. We have identified 2 senior communities with immediate availability. We need to choose one before the end of the year, list your house in January, and consolidate your finances while the market is favorable. Please come to dinner Friday at 6. We will review the transition schedule together." There was no question anywhere in the message. No, "How do you feel?" No, "Would you consider it?" Not even the soft dishonesty of, "We're worried about you." It had already been decided. My home would be listed. My finances would be consolidated. My life would be transitioned, apparently by a committee of 2. I sat up slowly and looked around the bedroom. The cedar dresser had belonged to my mother. The quilt at the foot of the bed was the last Christmas gift my husband, Daniel, had given me before his heart attack. On the nightstand was a photograph of us standing on Cannon Beach in 1994, laughing into the wind while our 7-year-old daughter built a crooked sandcastle behind us. This was not a facility. It was not unused equity. It was the physical map of my life. The house was a 1912 Craftsman with dark green siding, 4 bedrooms, a deep porch, and too many stairs. Daniel and I bought it in the summer of 1988, when the neighborhood was still full of mechanics, school teachers, and young couples willing to repair their own roofs. We stripped wallpaper, refinished floors, rebuilt the kitchen, and turned the narrow attic into a study. Natalie learned to ride a bicycle on the sidewalk outside. She came home from college to that house. She stood in the front hall in her wedding dress while I fastened her mother's pearls around her neck. Daniel died in the upstairs bedroom on the Sunday after Thanksgiving, with rain against the windows and my hand around his. I was not confused. I was not bedridden. I had renewed my driver's license in September. I still managed the bookkeeping for a neighborhood food pantry 2 mornings a week. Every Wednesday I attended a watercolor class. Every Saturday, unless the weather was dangerous, I walked 4 miles along the river with friends. I had arthritis in 2 fingers, and I occasionally forgot why I had entered a room, which made me exactly like every person I knew over 40. I typed 1 sentence beneath Natalie's email. "I will come Friday. Nothing will be decided for me." Her reply arrived less than a minute later. "Let's stay calm and practical, Mum. We only want what is best." That sentence stayed on my screen long after the phone went dark. People often said, "What is best?" when they meant, "What is easiest for us?" I had spent 32 years as a high school guidance counselor. I had sat across from frightened teenagers, furious parents, manipulative spouses, and administrators who used gentle language to hide cruel decisions. I knew the difference between concern and control. I also knew that love could exist beside selfishness. That was what made selfishness inside a family so difficult to recognize. At 8 that morning, I called Aisha Patel, the attorney who had settled Daniel's estate. She listened without interrupting while I described the email, the planned sale, and Owen's habit of discussing my property value. "Does Natalie control any accounts?" she asked. She becomes financial power of attorney only if I am incapacitated. Has anyone asked you to sign medical releases or add them to your banking? No. Keep it that way, Aisha said. Do not sign anything on Friday, do not hand over financial records, and do not agree to an evaluation arranged by them. Pressure often starts as concern and grows when the person applying it believes time is running out. The warning sounded extreme. Natalie was my child. She had held me together after Daniel died. Yet I made an appointment with Aisha for the following Tuesday and photographed every page in my financial binder before leaving for dinner. Still, on Friday evening, I photographed every page in my financial binder and placed the originals in the locked cabinet in Daniel's old study. Then I drove to Natalie and Owen's house in Lake Oswego. Their neighborhood had wide lawns, identical holiday wreaths, and houses designed to look expensive without looking personal. Natalie's home was glowing with white lights. A perfect cedar garland framed the door. Through the front window, I saw a Christmas tree decorated only in silver and glass. When Sophie was little, the tree had been covered in paper angels, school ornaments, and bright plastic candy canes. Now the tree looked like a hotel lobby. Owen opened the door before I rang the bell. "Ruth," he said, smiling too quickly. "Right on time." He wore a navy sweater over a collared shirt. His hair was carefully combed, and a gold watch flashed at his wrist. He did not hug me. Owen had never called me Mom, which I once respected because it seemed honest. Recently, even my first name sounded like something he used in a negotiation. Natalie came from the kitchen carrying a tray of wine glasses. She kissed my cheek, but her eyes moved immediately to the leather folder under my arm. "What's that?" she asked. "My calendar and some notes." "Oh." Her shoulders relaxed. "Good, we have a lot to go through." "Where is Sophie?" "At a holiday rehearsal," Natalie said. "She's performing at school next week." Sophie had texted me the day before that rehearsal had been cancelled because the music teacher had influenza. I looked at Natalie, but she was already turning away. Dinner was catered from an Italian restaurant. Natalie claimed she had been too busy to cook, yet every place setting included a printed packet clipped inside a cream folder. On the cover was a photograph of a smiling, silver-haired couple walking beside a pond. Beneath it were the words, "Cedar Grove, continuing living. Your next chapter." "My next chapter has apparently been typeset," I said. Natalie sighed. "Mom, please don't start with sarcasm. I did not start this." Owen poured wine. "Let's eat first. We can keep this civilized." The word civilized told me he expected resistance. I sat down and opened the packet. There were floor plans, monthly fees, medical service tiers, and a handwritten timeline. Tour Cedar Grove, December 14th. Reserve Unit, December 16th. Estate sale, January 8th and 9th. Property staging, January 12th. House listed January 15th. Move-in, January 22nd. I looked up. "You scheduled an estate sale?" "It's only a tentative hold," Natalie said. "The company is very busy after the holidays." "You called strangers to discuss selling my belongings before speaking to me?" "We were gathering information." "You chose dates. Dates can be changed." "Can my answer be changed?" I asked. "Because my answer is no." Owen leaned back. "This is why we need a rational conversation. You react before hearing the facts." Then came the list. Too many stairs, an old furnace, slippery back steps, a burglary nearby, the possibility of falling unnoticed. Natalie reminded me that I had tripped over a garden hose in August. "I bruised my knee," I said. "If you slip in your shower tomorrow, should I sell your house?" "That is different," she replied, "because you are 44 and I am 70. Owen opened another folder. He had estimates for my house, fees for Cedar Grove, and names of financial advisors he trusted. When I asked whether they earned commissions, he dismissed the question. "I am not treating you like criminals," I said. "I am treating you like people who scheduled my estate sale without permission." "We are family," Natalie answered. "Then you should have approached me with respect." Rain struck the windows. Owen finally stopped pretending. "That money will pass to Natalie eventually," he said. "Why waste years on taxes and repairs when the assets could be protected now?" Natalie shot him a warning look, but the truth was already at the table. "Protected for whom?" I asked. "For everyone. Sophie has college in 2 years. Our business has had a difficult quarter and—" "Stop," Natalie said. "No," I told her. "Let him finish." She reached for my hand. "Everything you have will be mine one day." "One day," I said. "After I'm finished using my life." Owen called me irrational. I told him he was creating the crisis he claimed to prevent, stood, and reached for my coat. For a moment, the only sound was rain striking the dining room windows. Then Owen leaned forward. "Let's be honest," he said. "That money is going to pass to Natalie eventually. Why waste years paying taxes and repairs on an oversized house when the assets could be protected now?" Natalie turned sharply. "Owen." There it was, not even hidden well. "Protected for whom?" I asked. "For everyone," he said. "For you, for Natalie, for Sophie. College is 2 years away. You know what tuition costs now, and our business has had a difficult quarter. We are carrying expenses that—" "Stop," Natalie said. "No," I said. "Let him finish." Owen looked at my daughter. They had the silent exchange of two people who had rehearsed a story and suddenly disagreed about the script. Natalie reached for my hand. "Mom, none of this is about taking your money. We are trying to build a plan that benefits the whole family. You always said everything you had would be mine one day." "One day," I said, "after I am finished using my life." Her eyes filled, but I could not tell whether the tears came from guilt or frustration. "You make it sound ugly." "It became ugly when you booked an estate sale company." Owen closed the folder harder than necessary. "You are being irrational. And you are being presumptuous. I am trying to prevent a crisis. You are creating one." I stood and reached for my coat. Natalie followed me into the entryway. "Mom, do not leave like this." "How should I leave?" "At least promise you will tour Cedar Grove." "No." "Why not? One tour, that's all." "Because you have confused my willingness to listen with permission to decide." Her face changed then. The soft expression disappeared. "You are punishing me for caring." "No, Natalie, I am refusing to reward you for ignoring me." I drove home through heavy rain, remembering every younger version of Natalie, the child asleep on my shoulder after midnight mass, the teenager who called me rather than ride with a drunk driver, the grieving daughter who washed my hair after Daniel's funeral. How could the same person love me and also plan to dismantle my home? A voicemail from Sophie asked whether she could still visit Sunday to bake Daniel's cinnamon cookies. Before I could answer, Natalie texted, "Please do not involve Sophie in an adult disagreement. We will contact you when everyone has calmed down." On Tuesday, Aisha reviewed my estate plan. Natalie stood to inherit the house and nearly all my investments, worth about $2 million in total. She was also named as future financial and medical representative. "Pressure does not prove criminal intent," Aisha said. "But the timeline, the planned sale, and Owen's language are serious warnings." She proposed a protected residence trust. I would keep the right to live in the house for life, while no one could sell or borrow against it without an independent trustee. Sophie's future share would be protected for education and released later in stages. Natalie would remain a beneficiary, but not in a form that Owen could seize or direct. Part of the estate would go to the food pantry and public library. "You are not punishing your daughter," Aisha said. "You are removing the incentive to treat your present as an advance on her future." I signed instructions to begin the revisions. For the next week, Natalie's messages swung from sweetness to urgency. Cedar Grove might give the apartment away. The housing market might cool. Christmas was approaching. I was supposedly tearing the family apart over one harmless tour. Then a real estate appraiser appeared at my door. "I'm here for the valuation requested by Natalie Mercer," he said. "She told us the family was preparing a January listing." I sent him away and called the listed agent. Natalie had claimed she was authorized to act for me. The agent apologized and removed the file, then admitted that Owen had repeatedly asked how quickly sale proceeds could be released after closing. That afternoon, I signed a formal revocation of Natalie's authority. Copies went to my bank, brokerage, doctor, and county records office. I still did not tell her. Some foolish part of me hoped she would step back before learning how far I had gone to protect myself. 2 days later, Natalie arrived with a poinsettia and 2 slices of my favorite lemon cake. "I come in peace," she said. For several minutes, peace almost seemed possible. We sat beside my mismatched Christmas tree, laughing over the paper snowman she had made in 2nd grade, and Daniel had secretly repaired twice. Then I mentioned the appraiser. Her hand froze over the plates. "I was keeping options open," she said. "You told them you were authorized." "I am your power of attorney. Only if I am incapacitated. I am not." Her eyes sharpened. "Did you speak to an attorney?" "Yes." "What did you do?" "I protected myself." "From me?" "From anyone who mistakes access for ownership." She stood and paced. "You have no idea what Owen and I are dealing with." "Then tell me." At last, the truth came out. Owen's company owed taxes, a major client was suing, they had borrowed against their home to cover payroll, and Sophie's school tuition was due in January. "How much?" "A little over $300,000. And your solution was my house. We planned to move you somewhere safer and invest the money so the family had flexibility." "That is the same sentence wearing makeup." Tears gathered in her eyes. "You have more than you need." The words hurt more than Owen's bluntness because they came from my child. "Who decides what I need? You live alone in 4 bedrooms. We are drowning." "You could have asked for help." Owen was ashamed. "But you were not ashamed to schedule my estate sale." She flinched. For most of Natalie's life, I had rushed between her and every consequence. I built forgotten school projects at midnight, paid the deductible after her first car accident, gave her and Owen $70,000 for their down payment, and moved into their guest room after Sophie's premature birth. I had called that love. Perhaps I had also taught her that I would always absorb the impact. "I might have helped if you had been honest," I said. "But I will not surrender my home to rescue you from choices you refuse to face. Sell the luxury car, move Sophie to public school, negotiate the tax debt. Owen can close the company and take salaried work." "You make it sound easy." "No, I make it sound like your crisis belongs to you." She pulled on her coat. "I cannot believe Dad left everything to someone so cold." "Your father left everything to me because we built it together," I said. "He did not leave it to you through me." She went pale and left the poinsettia and cake behind. The final trust documents were ready 2 days before Christmas Eve. I signed them in Aisha's office while a small ceramic menorah glowed on her bookshelf and holiday traffic crawled below the window. Each signature felt both terrible and necessary. The Hawthorne house entered a residence trust. My cousin Judith, a retired accountant in Seattle, became successor trustee, with Aisha's firm as backup. Natalie's power of attorney was replaced by Judith and my longtime friend Carol. My medical representative became Carol, who knew my wishes and had never once asked what my home was worth. Sophie's education trust was funded immediately, with enough to cover 4 years at a public university, but Natalie and Owen could not borrow from it, redirect it, or use it for private school tuition. Natalie remained a beneficiary of part of my estate, but distributions would be protected from marital debts and released over time. When we finished, Aisha folded her hands. "You need a safety plan for Christmas. I have not even been invited." As if summoned by the words, my phone rang. "Natalie." Her voice was controlled. "Sophie is begging for a normal Christmas. Come tomorrow at 5. We will not discuss the house." I looked at Aisha. "Will Owen be there?" I asked. "Of course." "Will anyone else?" "His brother and my mother-in-law will stop by later." I should have refused. Every instinct told me the invitation was not peace, But Sophie had sent me 3 messages about making Grandpa's cinnamon cookies, and I could not bear the idea of her believing I had chosen a legal fight over her. "I will come," I said, "but I am driving myself." Christmas Eve began gently. Snow had fallen in the hills, though the city itself was only cold and wet. Sophie opened the door wearing green pajamas and threw her arms around me. "Grandma, you came!" The relief in her voice told me how much she had feared I would not. She was 16, tall like Daniel, with Natalie's dark eyes and a habit of twisting one ring when nervous. We spent an hour in the kitchen rolling cinnamon dough and arguing about whether Grandpa's recipe required orange zest. For that hour, I almost believed the worst was behind us. Owen was unusually pleasant. He refilled my tea. Natalie asked about watercolor class. Christmas music played softly. The tree lights reflected in the windows. I began to wonder whether shame had finally broken through their panic. Then, after dinner, Owen removed a thick envelope from the sideboard. Natalie stopped gathering plates. "What is that?" I asked. "A practical solution," Owen said. Sophie looked between us. "Mom?" Natalie forced a smile. "Honey, take the dessert into the family room and start the movie." "I want to stay. This is adult business." "It is Christmas." "Sophie." Owen's voice sharpened. My granddaughter carried the dessert away, but she did not start the movie. I later learned she stood in the hallway where she could hear everything. Owen opened the envelope and slid several pages toward me. The top page was an agreement to sell my house to an investment company for $960,000, far below market value, with closing scheduled for January 6th. Another document authorized Cedar Grove to withdraw a deposit from my account. A third appointed Owen as financial manager for the sale proceeds. I looked at Natalie. "You promised we would not discuss the house." "We are not discussing it," Owen said. "We are finalizing it." I laughed once because the alternative was screaming. "You found a buyer for property you do not own." "The offer expires tonight," he said. "It is cash, no repairs, no inspection demands, fast closing. It is hundreds of thousands below value. After commissions, repairs, taxes, and months of uncertainty, the difference is not as large as you think." "Who owns the investment company?" He did not answer. I looked more closely at the page. The company address matched the office building where Owen's business rented space. "Is this one of your partners?" Natalie said. "Mom, the point is certainty. The point is theft." "Do not use that word," Owen snapped. "What word would you prefer?" He placed a pen beside the contract. "Sign it, and by New Year's Day this entire nightmare is over. Cedar Grove will hold the apartment. Our debts will be stabilized. Sophie's education will be secure. You will be safe. And you will control the money. I will manage it professionally." "You cannot professionally manage your own company." His face darkened. Natalie stepped between us. "Please, just sign the offer tonight. You have 3 business days to rescind." "That is not true for this contract," I said. "The waiver is on page 9. She blinked. She had not read it. Owen had. I stood. "I am leaving." Natalie moved toward the front door before I reached it. She turned the deadbolt and slipped the key into her pocket. For a second, none of us spoke. "Natalie," I said very quietly, "unlock the door. We need to finish the conversation. You have 30 seconds. Mom, stop being dramatic. You locked me inside your house. To keep you from driving while upset. I was calm until you detained me." Owen came up behind her. "No one is detaining you. Sit down, sign the papers, and we can all enjoy dessert." I took out my phone. Natalie's voice rose. "Who are you calling?" "The police." Owen reached for the phone. I stepped back and shouted, "Do not touch me." Sophie appeared in the hallway. "Dad, give Grandma the key." "Go upstairs." "No." "Sophie, now." "You cannot lock her in." Natalie's face crumpled. "We are trying to save this family." My call connected. A dispatcher asked for the address. Owen swore and looked at Natalie. "Open the door." She did not move. "Sophie," I said, "is there another exit?" My granddaughter ran to the kitchen and unlocked the back door. Cold rain blew in. I walked through it without my coat. Owen followed me onto the patio, holding the contract over his head to keep it dry. "You will regret humiliating your daughter," he said. I turned. "No, Owen. You will regret teaching your daughter what desperation looks like when it loses its mask." A patrol car arrived as I reached the side gate. I did not ask the officers to arrest anyone. I only wanted the incident documented and my coat returned. Natalie stood in the doorway crying while Sophie watched from behind her. The neighbors' Christmas lights blinked across the wet street. Owen told the officer it was a misunderstanding. I told him misunderstandings do not usually require someone to hide a key. The officer asked whether I felt safe driving. I said yes. My hands were steady. Hands were. At home, I found 3 missed calls from Natalie, 2 from Owen, and 1 from Sophie. I called Sophie first. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You did nothing wrong." "I heard Dad say the buyer was his friend. He said they could resell the house later and make back the difference." My stomach turned. "When did he say that?" "Last night. He thought I was asleep." "Are you safe there?" "Yes. They are fighting. Mum keeps saying this was not supposed to happen." "Can you go to your room and lock the door?" "Yes." "Call me or emergency services if anyone frightens you." "Grandma, are we still a family?" The question broke something open inside me. "Yes," I said. "But being a family does not mean pretending terrible things are normal." Christmas Day was the first I had spent without Natalie. Carol came with soup, Judith called from Seattle, and women from my walking group appeared carrying pie and an inflatable reindeer. I laughed with them, then cried alone in the pantry. 2 days later, Owen threatened to seek guardianship. He claimed my refusal to move, my revised documents, and the police call proved cognitive decline. A physician I had never met recommended a competency assessment. Aisha arranged an independent evaluation with a court-approved geriatric psychiatrist. I completed memory tests, financial scenarios, and a long interview. "Why do you believe your family wants control of your assets?" the doctor asked. "Because they scheduled my estate sale, sent an appraiser without permission, found a below-market buyer connected to Owen, locked me in a house, and demanded my signature," I said. Suspicion is not paranoia when it is supported by evidence. The report found no impairment and confirmed my full capacity. After Aisha warned that false claims could bring sanctions, the guardianship threat disappeared. The pressure moved into gossip instead. Natalie told relatives grief had made me unstable. Owen said I had become obsessed with money. His mother left a voicemail saying a good parent would not let her only child lose a home. I answered everyone with one sentence: "I will discuss this with anyone willing to hear the documented facts." Most stopped calling. On New Year's Day, Sophie visited while Natalie waited in the car. She asked whether I had changed my will and whether the house would someday be hers. "Yes, under protections," I said. "But I do not want you thinking about my death or money. I want you thinking about your life. Mum says you are using me to punish her. I am building a locked door around your future because adults near you are under financial pressure." Sophie hesitated. "Dad asked whether I would sign a family business document after I turn 18. He said not to worry about details. Never sign anything for someone who wants your signature more than your understanding." She looked toward her mother's car. "Is Mom a bad person?" "No, she is frightened and making harmful choices. A whole life cannot be reduced to one word." January exposed more damage. Owen's company closed. Employees filed wage claims. A supplier sued. Their bank began foreclosure. Sophie transferred to public school. I offered to pay a financial counselor and family therapist directly while refusing cash transfers, guarantees, or any discussion of selling my house. Natalie replied, "Keep your charity." We needed a mother, not a case manager. I saved the message with the others. In February, an ice storm shut down much of Portland. Near midnight, Natalie pounded on my door, soaked and frantic. "Sophie is missing." She had run after Owen, pressured her to sign a private student loan application. He claimed it would establish credit. Sophie accused him of trying to use her identity. Owen told Natalie to wait before calling police because Sophie was being dramatic. I made the call. Then I checked the location sharing app Sophie and I used on hikes. Her last signal came from Daniel's memorial bench at Mount Tabor Park. A patrol officer drove us as close as the ice allowed. We found Sophie beneath a picnic shelter, shivering in a thin jacket beside her dead phone. At the emergency clinic, Owen arrived angry instead of relieved. "You caused a citywide search because you wanted attention," he told her. Natalie turned on him. "Get out." He stared, but she repeated it until he left. At sunrise, while Sophie slept, Natalie admitted Owen had lied about the house buyer, the invented drainage problem, and my supposed agreement to sell. "I believed him because I needed to," she whispered. "That does not make you innocent." "I know." 2 weeks later, she discovered he had opened credit in her name, used Sophie's social security number on a business application, and hidden a year-long affair among company expenses. Natalie filed for divorce in March. The day after filing, she came to my porch carrying a cardboard box. Inside were copies of the proposed sale contract, emails between Owen and the buyer, and a handwritten list of debts. She looked older than 44. Her expensive coat hung loosely from her shoulders. "I need to tell you everything," she said. I let her in, but I did not hug her. We sat at the kitchen table where she had once done homework while Daniel cooked dinner. Natalie placed both hands around a mug of tea without drinking. "Owen told me we owed $180,000, she began. "It was closer to $500,000. Some of it was company debt, some taxes, some gambling, and some was the apartment he rented. He said if we could get access to your house proceeds, he could save the business and repay everything before you ever needed the money." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to believe I was helping everyone. He kept saying you were lonely, that the stairs were unsafe, that Dad would have wanted us to take responsibility. He said if we waited, medical costs might consume the estate anyway." I looked at her. "Did you ever once ask whether I was lonely?" "No." "Did you ask whether I wanted to move?" "You told us no." "That is not the same as asking." She began to cry. "I am ashamed." I felt no triumph, only exhaustion. "Why did you lock the door?" I asked. Her face folded. "Because Owen said if you left, the deal would collapse. He told me the buyer was already threatening him. I thought if you stayed 10 more minutes I could make you understand. When you called the police, I realized how it looked." "How it looked?" "How it was," she corrected. "I realized what I had done." I waited for the apology. She gave one, but not cleanly. "I am sorry," she said. "I was terrified. I was being lied to. I was trying to save my marriage." Each explanation placed a small cushion beneath her responsibility. "I believe you are sorry," I said. "I also believe you still want the circumstances to carry part of the blame for you." "What do you want me to say?" "That you chose to treat me as an asset, that you used my age against me, that you let your husband call me incompetent because I would not finance his deception, that you kept Sophie from me to force compliance. Say it without but." She covered her mouth and sobbed. I sat across from her and let the silence do what comfort would have interrupted. Finally, she said, "I treated you like your life was already over, and your property already belonged to me. I used your love for us as leverage. I frightened you, humiliated you, and tried to take away your choices. There is no excuse." The words did not heal everything, but they were the first stones of a bridge. "I love you," I said. "That is not the same as trusting you." She nodded. "I know. Trust will not return because you are suffering now." "I know. I will not undo the trust." Her eyes closed briefly. "I did not come to ask you to." I believed her, though not completely. Natalie and Sophie moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in April. Their house sold through foreclosure, leaving almost no equity. Owen moved in with his brother and faced investigations related to the fraudulent credit applications. Natalie cooperated with the bank and police. She worked long hours and sold nearly everything of value. For the first time in her adult life, she lived without the image of success she had spent years maintaining. Our relationship rebuilt in cautious pieces. At first, we met only with a family therapist. Natalie listened while I described the Christmas Eve door locking. She tried once to say that she had not intended to imprison me. The therapist interrupted gently. "Intent does not unlock a door," she said. Natalie did not argue again. Later, we met for coffee. Then short walks. Then a Sunday lunch with Sophie. I did not give Natalie keys to my house. I did not restore her power of attorney. I did not discuss account balances. When she asked whether the estate plan could ever change, I told her the conversation itself proved why it should not. She accepted that, though pain crossed her face. In May, Daniel's birthday arrived. Every year, I visited his memorial bench with cinnamon coffee and read a chapter from whichever mystery novel he had left unfinished. That year, Natalie asked to join me. We sat beneath newly green trees while cyclists passed on the path. "Dad would be disgusted with me," she said. "Your father loved you. He would also have told you the truth." "What truth?" "That panic does not create character. It reveals where character needs work." She looked down at her hands. "Do you think I can become someone you trust again?" "I think trust is a pattern, not a promise." "How long will it take?" "I do not know." She nodded, and for once she did not demand a deadline. Summer came. The roses along my fence bloomed so heavily that the branches bent toward the sidewalk. I hired a contractor to repair the back steps and replace the furnace, not because Owen had been right about my inability to live there, but because responsible independence includes maintenance. I installed better railings, motion lights, and a medical alert app. I paid for the work from my own account, selected my own contractor, and signed my own papers. The house remained large. I began using it differently. One bedroom became a studio. Another became a temporary room for women from my grief group whose families needed respite after medical treatment. The attic study hosted free college application workshops for students from the food pantry. The home Owen had called wasted space became fuller than it had been in years. Sophie visited often. She helped me paint the studio walls and chose a bright blue I would never have selected alone. She enrolled in public school, joined the debate team, and discovered she loved economics. The irony made us both laugh. One afternoon she asked, "Are you leaving me the house because you think Mom will never be responsible?" "No," I said. "I am leaving it in a structure that protects everyone from making desperate decisions. That includes you." "What if I do not want it?" "Then the trustee can sell it under fair terms, and you can use the proceeds according to the trust." "So I cannot sell it to a sketchy friend for cheap on Christmas Eve?" "Correct." She smiled. "Good rule." In August, Owen asked to meet me. His attorney had advised him to apologize before court proceedings related to the fraudulent applications. I refused a private meeting, but agreed to receive a letter through Aisha. The letter was 4 pages long. He described business pressure, depression, shame, and fear. He admitted arranging the below-market sale because his partner had promised him a hidden share of the resale profit. He admitted planning to move money through an investment account he controlled. He admitted encouraging Natalie to question my capacity. Near the end, he wrote that he had never intended to leave me without enough to live comfortably. Aisha watched me read that sentence. "He still believes he had the right to define enough," I said. "Yes," she replied. I did not answer the letter. By October, a full year had passed since my 70th birthday. Natalie invited me to a small dinner at her apartment. No printed agenda waited at my place, no folders, no financial language. Sophie baked a lopsided chocolate cake. Natalie gave me a scarf she had knitted badly during therapy sessions. The stitches changed size every few inches. "I almost bought one," she said, "but I thought this should look like effort." "It certainly does," I said, and we both laughed. After dinner, she handed me a card. Inside, she had written, "I am grateful you did not let my fear erase you." I read it twice. Then I placed it in my purse. "Thank you," I said. She looked uncertain. "That's all?" "That is a great deal." She nodded. The most important change was not that my daughter apologized or that Owen's lies were exposed. It was that I stopped believing love required me to make myself smaller so other people could avoid the consequences of their choices. For most of my life, I had confused generosity with immediate rescue. I had thought a good mother absorbed impact. She paid, fixed, forgave, and kept the family story neat. But sometimes the most loving thing a mother can do is refuse to participate in the lie. The following Christmas Eve, Natalie and Sophie came to my house. Carol joined us, and Judith drove down from Seattle. We cooked too much food, burned the first batch of cinnamon cookies, and hung Daniel's old fishing boat ornament near the top of the tree. Rain moved softly against the windows. At one point, Natalie stood in the front hall looking at the door. "I think about last year every time I see a deadbolt," she said. "So do I. I wish I could take it back." "You cannot." "I know." She reached into her pocket and placed something in my palm. It was a new brass key. "What is this?" "The key to my apartment, not because you need it, because I want you to know you are welcome." I closed my fingers around it. I did not give her a key to my house in return. Not yet. The old version of me would have done so immediately to prove forgiveness. The woman I had become understood that forgiveness did not require symmetry. "Thank you," I said. She smiled sadly. "Maybe someday. Maybe." Later, after everyone had gone to bed, I walked through the quiet rooms. The dining table was cluttered with plates. Sophie's coat hung over the banister. Judith's suitcase blocked the hallway. Carol had left her reading glasses beside the sofa. The house was not empty, and it was not a monument to the past. It was alive because I had remained alive inside it. I stood in the kitchen where I had first read Natalie's transition email 1 year earlier. The same cedar cabinets surrounded me. The same old clock ticked above the doorway. But I was not the same woman. I had lost the comforting illusion that my daughter would always protect me. I had learned that competent people could be pressured, that loving people could become dangerous when fear and entitlement joined hands, and that age did not make my boundaries less valid. I had also learned that a broken relationship could be rebuilt without pretending the breaking never happened. My phone lit up with a message from Aisha. "Merry Christmas, Ruth. How is the house?" I took a photograph of the messy dining room, the half-eaten cookies, and the paper snowman ornament leaning crookedly on the tree. "Full," I wrote back, "exactly as it should be." Before going upstairs, I checked the front door. The deadbolt turned easily beneath my hand. I locked it because I chose to, in the home I chose to keep, surrounded by the life no one else had the right to schedule, sell, or transition away. Then I switched off the lights and climbed the stairs on my own.